Students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest here, the capital city of Hungary. I hope everybody is having a good week, staying healthy, staying strong, and optimistic. Students, in this class, we are looking at IELTS reading, talking about some effective skills for Band 9. This is a brand new reading passage in the members chat class. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch. The question types are based off of the latest Cambridge past papers, book 14. Hi, Sammy. Hi, Abhishek. Hi, Mustafa. Good to see our members in the class. To become a member, click the join button beside the subscribe button. If you don't see that, send me an email and I can give you further instructions. If ever you have questions, my email is adrian@aehelp.com. And of course, this lesson and material is brought to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS success, please visit us there. And for the general IELTS, check us out at IELTShelp.com. On both of these websites, we have lots and lots of materials. We're always adding new materials as well to help you improve your English and your communication. Our academic website looks like this with the blue background. Click that big red button to join us there. And for the general version of the website, it's the green background. Click that big red button there. Hi, Pavan. Hi, Rashika. All right, let's get back to it. So, of course, we have apps. Our apps are Academic IELTS Help. This app links to the website, aehelp.com. And General IELTS Help app links to gieltshelp.com. And right now we have reading, and then in about 90 minutes for all chat class, where everybody will be able to join the chat, we will start a task 2 writing question, and that will be one where you have to discuss both sides of an idea. A lot of students were asking me about that, so I created a question like that for that class. Okay. Let's get into today's reading. Again, this is a brand new reading topic. It's being developed for our new exam, so we're kind of testing it out in these live classes as well and giving you a sneak peek at some upcoming tests for the website. We're going to have 10 full exams by the end of this year. All right. So, Bekjan, welcome. Here we go. Let's first look at the title. Always look at the title first. And make sure to understand it as much as possible, visualize it, try to think about what the passage could be about. Okay, so touch screens, 20th century invention, 21st century commonplace. Members, what do you think this title is alluding to? So what is it referring to when it says touchscreens, 20th century invention, 21st century commonplace? What could that mean? So here you should be thinking, what are touchscreens? Why are we talking about this? How does it work? Why does it say 20th century invention and 21st century commonplace? So Abhishek says laptops and smartphones. Sammy says it's a botched technology and touchscreens. Bekchan says maybe something about the inventor's name. But what does it, why do we have 20th century invention, 21st century commonplace? So what could that be? What do you think that means? What are you going to read here? What can you expect to be in the passage based on that information? Okay. 20th century, of course, that's from the 1900s to 2000. And 21st century is 2000 to 2000, well, let's say 99. It's a little bit more accurate. So that's the century that we're living in right now. 21st or 20th century, that was the past century. What would be 1999? Okay. Okay, Sammy says the comparison. Janil says using rapidly to technology anywhere, any place. Abhishek says introduction of the touchscreen. Sammy says developments. Beckjan says it dominated the 21st century market so far. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll tell you what I kind of think of when I read this title, and then you'll let me know if you were thinking the same or if we're on a completely different page. So when I'm reading this title, what comes to my mind when I read 20th century invention, what comes to my mind is this technology was invented and developed during the 1900s. But, and this is the big but, it didn't actually become popular until the 21st century for smartphones, tablets, and lots more, right? There's a lot of devices use touchscreen technology right now. So likely this reading will explain its development technologically and socially, okay? So it's likely going to explain why it became popular later on, why maybe it wasn't so popular during its early days, all right? So that kind of comes into my mind. And students, this passage is almost as new for me as it is for you. I'm not the one developing this reading passage, believe it or not. There is a team that works with me. It's too much for me to do alone. So this is quite new for me as well. And so this is genuinely my original thought when I read this title, okay? So this technology is invented and developed during the 1900s by some scientists. For some reason, it doesn't become popular until the 21st century. And then the reading will explain both its technological and social development. Okay, all right. So that's what I think of here. Okay, all right, well, let's see what happens. We'll soon find out. It's a nice long article here. Let's take a look at the questions. So here, we have to complete the notes below. Now, these questions, members and viewers, these questions reflect the most recent IELTS exams question types, okay? So what you're seeing in these readings that I'm showing you in the last couple of weeks, including this one, are very similar to what you can see in the IELTS today for academic IELTS, okay? All right, so here we go. Complete the notes below. Choose no more than 2 words from the passage for each answer. So it has to be 2 words from the passage, okay? So double check, make sure they're the right words. And it says title of the summary topic. Okay. Let's read this. Capacitive touchscreens. Johnson's touchscreens used something as an insulator and a transparent conductor coating. Okay. The something worked as the conductor, and because the dose of electricity was small, it did not affect the person's health. Resistive touchscreens. This technology was developed by accident. Instead of making calculations by hand, they used a special kind of something which conducted electricity. When the researchers applied for a patent for the technology, they were denied. Patent officers did not believe the technology had any something applications outside of the laboratory. Okay. Members, do you know what the word patent means? Patent? What is the meaning of patent? Anybody know what that means? It's a good word to know, especially if you're an inventor and you like to think about new ideas or create new types of objects or machines. Then knowing this word patent is very, very important. Yeah, so Abhishek says it's a trademark, it's a right. Yeah, that's right, Begjun. It's the invention's right. It means that you are the official inventor of that object and you own the rights to that technology. That's right. Copyright is more for intellectual property, Mustafa. It's for property of thinking, okay? It's called intellectual property. All right, let's keep going here. Good for you. Yeah, patent. Very good. Hearst was no longer bothered by worries about something, so he toiled in his off hours with friends to refine his invention. No hands required. Hearst developed his technology to the point that, while one could still use a finger to manipulate the touchscreen, a person could also use a device akin to a pen with no ink. Very interesting. All right. So we're going to learn lots about a technology that we use every day. Here we have our true, false, not given questions. Of course, these are very popular in the IELTS exam. Why are true, false, not given, yes, no, not given questions so popular? Anybody have an idea? Members, why do you think you see so many, at least one per reading section, but often you will see two of these? Why do you think it's so popular? So why are true, false, not given questions so popular for the IELTS exam? So Mustafa says because it tests critical thinking. Yeah, absolutely. So it does that. It tests critical thinking, and it does one other important step. What does it do? So critical thinking is one. And it's not to confuse students, Sammy. It's to stop students from trying to skim read and scan for answers, okay? Because that's not effective, and IELTS examiners know that students who get into college and university have to have a certain level of reading speed and comprehension. And if they don't, they're going to have a lot of trouble in college and university. They will waste their money, their parents' money, their scholarships, and fail. And the IELTS doesn't want that for the student or for the university or for the parents or for the government. So they put these questions in there to stop students from skimming and scanning for answers. Okay? Yeah, Beckjan, very nice. So Beckjan says, Adrian, keep it simple. It requires understanding of the passage. Exactly, Beckjan. It makes sure that the student understands the passage and is not just trying to search for keywords. So that's why they're so popular. And you're right, members, don't read this one. Okay? So don't read it, but be prepared for it. Okay, and then here we have some multiple choice, and this is kind of a newer type of question in the IELTS. It says choose two letters A to E. Write the correct letters in boxes 37 and 38 on your answer sheet. So here you have one multiple choice question with 5 choices. 2 of them are correct, and the order doesn't matter. You just have to get the 2 right answers. So this is kind of another interesting type of multiple choice. And this is something new that you will see. Again, it's to test your critical thinking and to decrease skimming and scanning for answers. Okay, so it's another one of these. So here we go. Which 2 of the following statements are made in the text about G.S. Hearst, the inventor? Okay. So again, if you're just skimming for the name, you might not find the answers because maybe in one part it will say the scientists or he or the man. Okay, there's ways to paraphrase names. So careful. All right, and then question 39 and 40, again, same idea. Choose two letters, A to E. Write the correct letters in boxes 39 and 40 on your answer sheet. Which two of the following statements are made in the text about E.A. Johnson? All right, so kind of a new type of multiple choice question for the reading section. So don't be surprised if you see something like this in your upcoming IELTS exam. All right, everyone, let's do some reading. Here we go. So, of course, the true way to get good band scores and improve your brain is to read and understand. And that's what we're going to do right now. Here we go. So read with me and let's talk about this. So, touchscreens, 20th century invention, 21st century commonplace. Read and read aloud if you can. All right. Here we go. The touchscreen is everywhere in modern society. While the most commonplace touchscreens are encountered is mobile phones, touchscreens are also found in ATMs, grocery stores, computers, and tablets, parking meters, cars, restaurants, medical equipment, and countless other applications. They are a part of everyday life that most people take for granted. But how did they come to be? How do they work? All right, so obviously an introduction to the topic here, and giving us an idea of how commonplace these devices really are, how many different parts of society uses touchscreens. Okay, all right, elevators, by the way, even use them these days, elevators. All right, let's keep going. So we're going to discover the information. We can see that the thesis here is in question form. Okay, all right. Let's do this. Keep reading with me. The first touchscreen was developed in the mid-1960s by British scientist E.A. Johnson while working for the Royal Radar Establishment in Malvern, UK. Johnson's invention utilized what came to be known as capacitive touch technology. It worked by using, let me get you back on camera here. I saw that. Not sure why it paused, but anyhow, let me just get you back here while you think about this touchscreen technology. I'm also using touch technology, if you're wondering, for these live presentations. So keep that in mind. Visualize. All right. So here we go. It worked by using an insulator, usually glass, that had a transparent conductor coating, such as indium tin oxide. The finger acted as a conductor for electricity, a very small amount that was not damaging to a person's health, that activated the desired input. This device had limitations. First, it could not handle multiple touches at the same time. That is, the device could only register one touch at any time. Second, it could not register sensitivity. It was like a light switch that registered either on or off and nothing in between. Touchscreens that could handle variations of pressure would not come until decades later. Though Johnson's touchscreens were lacking certain aspects of modern touchscreens, they still found important uses in the last decades of the 20th century. His touchscreen technology was implemented by air traffic controllers in the United Kingdom and was still in use until the late 1990s. Ooh, exciting. So the earliest touchscreens, did everybody know that touchscreens date back to the 1960s? 1960s, that's surprising, right? Even computers haven't been around that much longer. So touchscreens actually were around quite early in the game, right? So here, hopefully you visualize this. Okay, this is a very visual paragraph. It describes the technology. It's a conductive type of technology, so your finger acts as the electrical conductor, and it has limitations. What are the limitations of this early touchscreen technology? Let me move this out of the way so you can answer. So I want to see how actively you're reading, members. Give me some information here. I'll ask you a couple questions. So what were the limitations of this technology? Okay, of this type of touchscreen technology. What were the limitations? There are a couple of important points that you should visualize and comprehend to make sure that you can answer the questions later on. So Bekjan says it can be operated only by one hand. Not the best answer, Bekjan, but you're on the right track. Yeah, so Sammy says only one touch input. Sammy, the word you're looking for is input, one touch input. Yeah. So it registers only one touch at a time. Very nicely explained, Mustafa. That was one. And what was the other one? So only one finger at a time. So no multi-finger tapping or expanding, shrinking, that type of technology. So didn't have that. What was another one? It said one more that was very clear. It said, okay, the other one was this. Yeah, Dr. Krishna, very good. So pressure limitation, it basically was an on and an off. You touch it or you don't touch it. There's no pressure sensitivity difference. There was no health issue, Mustafa. Okay? Yeah, there was no health issue. It says the electricity was not enough to harm the human. Okay, so let's keep reading and learning more about this. Here we go. Next paragraph. Though Johnson's touchscreen was used throughout the latter part of the 20th century, it was quickly overshadowed in popularity by a different type of touchscreen technology, resistive. This technology was developed by accident in the early 1970s by G.S. Hurst while working at the University of Kentucky. While working through the night on a particle accelerator, Hurst and his team wanted a faster way to complete their computations. They came upon the solution of using electrical conductive paper to read coordinates instead of calculating them by hand. A side effect of this work was that the electrical conductive paper also worked as a touchscreen. The University of Kentucky applied for a patent, but was rejected. The discovery did not seem to the patent officers to have any relevant application beyond the laboratory. Freed from intellectual property concerns, Hurst later worked during his off hours with a team of inventors, scientists, and engineers who also happened to be friends on refining his chance invention. Hurst knew that the technology was promising. How it worked was quite simple. The previously mentioned electrically conductive paper was used to cover a sheet containing the X and Y axis, which were connected to a power source. When pressure was put on the conductive cover sheet, voltage was allowed to pass between the X and Y wires, which was then instantaneously measured to indicate the position of the pressure. One advantage of the resistive technology over the capacitive technology was that it did not require the toucher to be specifically a finger. While it could certainly still be a finger, it could also be a stylus, a kind of pencil-type device to operate the touchscreen. In the 1990s, this led to a generation of so-called personal digital assistants, which used a stylus to operate a resistive touchscreen. Today, resistive touchscreens are still common around the world because they are cheaper and more durable. These devices can be found today in hospitals, factories, restaurants, and other retail environments. All right, so again, you have to visualize, you have to think about, what was the difference between this technology and the former, so Johnson's technology? What were the advantages of this technology? And why was Hearst able to develop this technology? So all of these ideas and thoughts should come to mind, okay? Thinking about the paragraphs in terms of questions is a good idea to keep the order and flow of information in your memory. Okay. Now, this is a third passage in an academic IELTS exam, and students, be prepared for this level of English. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. Let's get to the next paragraph. Here we go. The next technological development, which was critical for the device you have in your pocket, is the ability for a touchscreen to be contacted in more than one position, i.e. with 2 fingers at once. This functionality is fundamental to the operation of modern smartphones. Multiple finger gestures are made to zoom in and out on web pages, photos, or maps, among other useful functions. Interestingly, this technology is built upon the foundation laid by E.A. Johnson in the 1960s and 70s. The capacitive aspect of the touchscreen, while certainly more complex than previous iterations, is fundamentally the same as that from half a century ago. Modern modifications have allowed for multiple touch points as well as pressure gradations, but the technology is remarkably similar to its origins. All right, so what's interesting here is, all right, well, we have these devices in our pockets, and it's actually using the early form of the technology developed by E.A. Johnson. Okay. So again, visualize and think the questions. Here we go. Let's keep reading. One negative aspect of capacitive touch technology is that a user cannot use a stylus or other object, since these objects do not conduct electricity like a finger. But this has changed in recent years. For example, in 2015, Apple unveiled the Apple Pencil, which used highly responsive sensors built into the tip of the pencil to detect force, position, and pencil tilt to provide a multitude of effects. All right. And finally, what is the future of touchscreens? 50 years since their advent, the possibilities seem endless. One fact seems doubtless, however, touchscreens are a huge part of our lives, and all evidence points to this staying the case for the foreseeable future. Okay, so that's the conclusion by the author, and now hopefully we have clear concept of what we just read, and we can get into some answers. So let's do this together. I will help you. You will help me. We are going to go through all of these questions together. Members, work together. Okay, work together to get the right answer. So no more than 2 words from the passage for each answer. Title of the summary of the topic. So probably coming from the beginning. Capacitive touchscreens. Okay, so that's going to be Johnson's invention here. Johnson's touchscreens used something as an insulator and a transparent conductor coating. So what did Johnson's touchscreens use as an insulator? Can anybody remember? Now, if you're into technology a bit, you'll probably figure this out because most technology today uses this as an insulator. Okay. Sammy and Mustafa are both in agreement that it's glass. Okay, Paman says indium. But Mustafa and Sammy say glass. Glass is an insulator. So let's tentatively put glass in there. That would be a great guess. Now, when you have an answer like this, students, then you say, okay, this is my answer. All right. So your light bulb going off. And then you go, okay, so now I can think about this word and this word. And if I have to look to try to figure this out, I know that I need to do is go back to the paragraph. Okay. And look for glass and insulator, and it should be somewhere in the beginning. And right away, I can see that, okay, capacitive touch technology, it worked by using an insulator, usually glass, that had a transparent conductor coating, such as indium tin oxide. Okay, so the conductor coating was the indium, but the insulator itself was the glass. So very, very good. Okay, glass seems to be correct here. All right, Sammy says voice is cracking for you. I'm just going to see if how we're doing with our Wi-Fi here. Well, it seems to be okay. All right. Okay, so glass it is. Okay, let's keep going. The something worked as the conductor, and because the dose of electricity was small, it did not affect the person's health. So something worked as the conductor. What worked as the conductor if it was the glass? And again, you have to visualize. Pavan says finger. Abhishek says finger. Yeah. Hopefully most of you got this. This is one where you should not have to look back. Remember this early technology, it used the human finger as the conductor, right? We conduct electricity. That's why it's not a good idea to put your finger into the electrical socket because it will zap you. So this you should not have to search for. This answer, like I say, you might take a quick look. But this one, you shouldn't have to flip for. This one, you should say, okay, the finger worked as the conductor. Be confident and keep going, okay? So there's no way that you should be searching for this answer. That's a give me answer, okay? So finger is right. Glass and finger. All right, so now we're on to resistive touchscreens. So resistive touchscreens, of course, it's the next paragraph. It's the technology developed by Hearst. This technology was developed by accident. Instead of making calculations by hand, they used a special kind of something which conducted electricity. This, I think, is another give me. So if you read the passage semi-carefully and visualized, you should know this answer without having to search the passage. Okay. Beckjohn says it was a special kind of paper. Does anybody else agree with Beckjohn on paper? Special kind of paper which conducted electricity. Yeah, it would have been paper. Paper, special kind of paper. Okay. Hopefully you visualize that. So that was very clear. Again, in the passage, when you read the second paragraph, okay? So here we go. They were doing calculations by hand, and then they came across the solution of using electrically conductive paper to read coordinates instead of calculating them by hand. So that was really clear for me anyway. When I read that, I visualized these scientists using their hand to calculate with an abacus, maybe like a tick, 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 tick. And then they realized, this is really slow. We need something faster. Let's use this special paper with electricity through it, okay? All right, so you can say paper, or if you really want, you could also say special type of conductive paper, okay, to be on the safe side. Conductive paper, all right? So here, special kind of paper. They will take paper here, or conductive paper to be safe. Okay, paper would be okay here, but conductive paper is more accurate. All right, next one. When the researchers applied for a patent for the technology, they were denied. Patent officers did not believe the technology had any something applications outside of the laboratory. This one you might even be able to just guess from context. So any what kind of applications? Yeah, Mustafa, very good. Relevant. Just watch the spelling, Mustafa. Any type of relevant. Relevant in this case would mean like real world. Okay. Now here, if you're not sure, you can look for application and you can look for laboratory, those words. You know it's coming from the third paragraph because you read the passage properly. So you know it's coming from here, this big one, okay? And it was somewhere in the middle, okay? So to the patent officers, so that's where I'm looking for the word patent, right? Officers, to have any relevant, there's the word relevant almost right beside it, relevant applications, okay? Beyond the laboratory, so there's the word laboratory. So right from this sentence here, okay? All right. Again, one other reason that you should read the passage once clearly is because then if you do have to go back and skim and search for answers, you're doing it logically, you're doing it accurately, and you know where to look for the information. So it's much, much faster than trying to search for information from the get-go. Does that make sense, students? Did everybody catch that? So one really good reason to read the whole passage in 10 minutes is so that if you need to check the passage for your answers, you can do it really fast and accurate because you know where the information is. Right? Everybody? Pavan says, thumbs up. Yeah, so you can't just randomly search for this kind of information. You can, but it might take you a lot longer. Okay? So, relevant. All right. Relevant means some kind of actual application. Okay? So, relevant. All right. Okay, Hearst was no longer bothered by worries about something, so he toiled in his off hours with friends to refine his invention. Here you can probably figure out what that is. Worries about what? He was no longer worried about. Good, I'm happy everybody picked up that last piece of advice. Yeah, very good, Abhishek. Intellectual property, right? Who does it belong to? Intellectual property. Nicely done, Abhishek. Yeah, very good. And you need both words there. He was no longer worried about intellectual property. It's anybody's. It's free game, right? Anybody has rights to it. It didn't belong to the University of Kentucky, so he could work away with it, right? All right, let's keep going. No hands required. So obviously, here we're getting into that interesting technology that was discussed a little bit later. Hearst developed his technology to the point that while one could still use a finger to manipulate the touchscreen, a person could also use a device akin to a pen with no ink. Now, if some of you are my age, born in 1980, You will remember this from the 90s when everybody had this kind of device, which Apple bought later. Yeah, it's the stylus. Everybody still remember the stylus? I still remember the stylus. I think some of the younger generation today would be like, what? Really? Okay. Everybody remember the Palm Pilot? It was called the Palm Pilot. I think that was the original personal assistant called the Palm Pilot. And it looked like a large, thick mobile phone with kind of like a green display matrix that you used the stylus on. The pen would actually sit on the side of the Palm Pilot. Okay. Mustafa says, I don't even know what is a stylus. Sammy says, I remember the stylus. There you go. Yeah. The stylus. That's right. Good old stylus. Where did that go? Apple bought. I'm pretty sure Apple bought the technology. That's what happened. Okay. Abhishek remembers. He's like, yeah, the top right-hand side. I remember that. Okay, let's get into true, false, not given. Here we go. So you know how this works. You know the strategy. Let's figure these out together. So here we go. Personal digital assistants were developed to facilitate business communication. Is it important to know for what reason the personal digital assistants were developed? Is that important to know for this particular passage? What do you think? Was that important to know the reason for the development of the personal digital assistants? Bhumi says no. Yeah, I would say no. So therefore, it's not given. Okay. It's too much detail, right? Now, another way you can figure that out is it true? It's false. So why would we give this much detailed false information? This also alludes to the fact that it's not given. If it's a really detailed concept for the context of the passage, and it's false, because personal digital assistants, you could use them for anything, not just business, but it's false. You could use those for school as well, okay? So it would be a not given, okay? All right, 34, multi-touch gestures facilitate the magnification of web pages and photos. Okay, for the topic of touchscreens, is it important to understand the purpose of multi-touch gestures? For 34, would that be, if you are the author of this passage of touchscreens and you're writing about their history and application, would you mention the importance of multi-touch screens and their use for web pages? Yeah, absolutely you would. Okay, definitely. I'm sure I would include that in my 700-word essay. So it's important. Yes, so it's given. Yes. Is it true? So do we use multi-touch gestures to magnify web pages and photos? Baekjun says, yeah, and it's true. So true it is. Right? Okay. 35. Not only is the capacitive aspect of touchscreens more complex, it represents a fundamental transformation from iterations 50 years before. So is it important to know that capacitive aspect of touchscreens is more complex? And is it important to know that it represents a fundamental transformation from iterations 50 years before? So is it important? Yeah, it's definitely important. Okay, so it's given. Okay, so is it true that capacitive touchscreens are complex? And is it true that they fundamentally work very differently than half a century before? So is it true? Boomy says it's false. Abhishek says it's false. Sammy says it's false. I agree that it's false, right? Don't overthink it, students. It said that it's actually quite a simple concept, right? Your finger acts as a conductor. You touch it, you make a connection, and bada boom, it's a conductor, right? And Beckjohn says, these days, it's basically the same concept. It's just a lot more refined. It's a lot more evolved, but it's using the same concept as 50 years ago. So that's right. That was in the passage very clearly, right? That even the touchscreens of today are basically using the same principles that Johnson developed 50 years ago. So the answer here for sure is false. Okay, number 36. Apple was the first company to unveil a highly responsive stylus able to detect force and position. So Apple, 36, was the first company to unveil a highly responsive stylus able to detect force and position. Is it important to know that Apple was the first company? Important to know this one, that Apple was the first? I don't think so. I don't think it's important. Careful, students. Sometimes these kinds of ideas are catchy, but it's not true. Okay, then what was the second company? What was the third company? I would say that it's not important. Okay, it's too much detail. Who cares what the first, second, or third company was to develop a highly responsive stylus that's able to detect force and position? Okay, so it's not important, it's not given, and in fact, it's not true. So just like with the first one, Apple was not the first company to unveil a highly responsive stylus. Palm Pilot was, okay? If you do your research, you'll see that a company called Palm Pilot was actually the first company to unveil a highly responsive stylus. So it wasn't Apple, so in fact this is even false, but it's not discussed, okay? It's not given, okay? Now, if you're not sure, because these do get more and more difficult, and you're like, I'm not sure, then check for Apple, right? There's only one place that the article talks about Apple, and it has something to do with the modern pen, but it doesn't say anything about the first being the first one, right? So here is that the user cannot use a stylus or other object, but this has changed. In recent years, for example, in 2015, Apple unveiled the Apple Pencil, which used highly responsive sensors built into the tip of the pencil to detect force, position, and pencil tilt to provide multiple effects. But it doesn't say Apple was the first company to develop a highly responsive stylus. Okay? It doesn't say that anywhere. Right? So careful with the details of the question. Okay? All right, so the correct answers for these true, false, not given questions were not given, true, false, and not given. Unveil means to show to the public, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're the first to develop it. Okay? We don't know who did in this case from this passage. Okay, let's get into the last 4 questions. Here we go, students, doing a fantastic job today. Now, again, true, false, not given. You should have your own ideas before you start searching the text. Which 2 of the following statements are made in the text about G.S. Hurst? So we know that this is paragraph 3 if we have to search somewhere, mostly paragraph 3. Okay. Employed a binary on-off touchscreen, carried out research at a post-secondary institution, voltage was allowed to pass between the X and Y wires. He made touchscreens a huge part of our lives. desired a quicker method of carrying out calculations. So what are the two correct answers here? One of them is very easy to figure out. Right away you can figure it out. Okay. So what's true here? E definitely, right? So using the paper method, a quicker method of carrying out calculations. So E is correct. And where did he work? Where was this particle accelerator? What was the other one? So where was the particle accelerator? Yeah, Mustafa, very good. B, right? So he carried out research at a post-secondary institution, which is the University of Kentucky. Okay, so B was correct. B was correct. Okay, that one should have been actually pretty quick. Okay, so University of Kentucky, and using that conductive paper to make the calculations faster. We don't know who made touchscreens a huge part of our lives. It could have been popularized by somebody else, right? Apple, Palm Pilot, these companies popularized touchscreens in the end. It doesn't say that he started a company which popularized the touchscreens, right? We know that A is not correct because that was Johnson's method, the on-off touchscreen. This is the one that we might want to check, but it wasn't the X and Y wires, it was the X and Y axis, right? So if you pay attention to that word, you realize that that's wrong, between X and Y axes, not wires, okay? So careful with that, okay? All right. Okay, and 39 and 40. Okay, 39 and 40. Let's have a look at that. So, Sammy, that answers why it's not the two wires, X and Y. There's no such thing as an X and Y wire. It's an X and Y axis. Okay? All right, last two students. Here we go. You're doing a fantastic job. 39 and 40. So always think critically. Always pay attention to each word, okay? All right. Here we go. Which two of the following statements are made in the text about E.A. Johnson? Now, he appears in a couple parts in the passage, right? He appears in the second body paragraph and later on, okay? So paragraph 2, but also I think maybe 4 and 5 and even in 3. So he's a little bit tricky. If you have to search for him, it could take quite some time, all right? So here we go. Which two of these following statements are true? A, he developed the first multi-touch touchscreen technology. That's probably not right. His technology was used to help land airplanes. C, his technology used resistive technology. D, he created the first touchscreen. Or E, worked in his off hours to develop his technology. Let's see, which are these? So Sammy was paying attention. Yeah, I mean, that was very clear. He is accredited as being the first person to develop the touchscreen, right? So he was the first one in record to create the touchscreen. Maybe somebody else did, but we don't know about it. We definitely know he did it, and he seems to be the first one. Okay? All right, and what's the second one? He developed the first multi-touch touchscreen technology? No, definitely not, right? It's very clear that it was a single point, and it was Hearst. So we know that this one was Hearst. That you should have caught from this. His technology was used to help land airplanes. Jai Neal says that's correct. Okay, we'll get back to that. His technology used resistive. No, that was Hearst, right? So we know that's not correct. Okay. And then D, we know that's one. And then E, he worked in his off hours to develop his technology. That was Hearst. So that leaves us with B as the possible answer. Is it right to have B and D? Yeah, it does. Because his technology was used where? Up until the 1990s. Okay. Again, visual information, members, visualize, right? It seems like a difficult one in a lot of detail, but it's not that bad if you were really visualizing the information. Look at this right here. His touchscreen technology was implemented by air traffic controllers in the United Kingdom and was still in use until the late 1990s. Nobody was surprised by that fact. Wow, they were using touchscreen technology from 1960, even in the 1990s, by air traffic controllers. Well, of course, they're landing airplanes, right? Air traffic control, that's what they do. That's their main job, right? So Sammy and Janelle say, yeah, of course, I got that. I saw that, right? People working in the control tower, right? So your control tower at the airport, and there's people using his little touchscreen to land the airplanes or help land the airplanes, right? So the correct answers were B and D for 39 and 40. B and D for 39 and 40. Okay. All right, students, that is this brand new reading passage for today. Again, read the passage, visualize, think critically, ask logical questions in your head as you're reading, okay? And if you have to skim or search for answers, do it with purpose, do it with logic, all right? That's the key here. To get 6 original practice tests and lots of strategies and audio reading for practice. If you haven't already, check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gltshelp.com for general IELTS. And that's a little bit about touchscreen technology. So next time you touch your phone, which is probably right now or very soon, then now you'll know these names and this little bit of history of touchscreen technology. Coming up in 30 minutes, we will start a task to essay where everybody can join the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm glad you enjoyed this lesson. You're very welcome. Pavan, Rashika, Janil, Abhishek, Bekjan, Sami. Good job today. Hopefully, I'll see you in half an hour. I'm Adrian, signing out from Budapest for now. Bye-bye.